You see this? This right here is 3 years of me thinking I was Gordon Gekko. 3 years of waking up at market open, watching YouTube finance bros with their 12 monitors, buying whatever stock was gonna moon, panic selling when it dropped 5%, then watching it actually moon 2 weeks after I sold. You know what I made after 3 years of this circus? Negative $1,200. Thua, I lost money while the market went up. How incompetent do you have to be to lose money in a bull market? That's like drowning in a desert after it finally rains. And you know what the real kick in the teeth is? If I had just bought the S&P 500 on day one and went fishing for 3 years, I'd be up like 40%. 40%. While I was over here playing Warren Buffett cosplay, losing sleep, losing money, losing my mind watching pre-market futures at 4 in the morning like some kind of financial crackhead, the laziest investment strategy on earth was just sitting there, quietly printing money for people who had the common sense to do absolutely nothing. So tonight, we're talking about the S&P 500. And before you click away thinking this is going to be some boring finance lecture, let me be clear, I'm not some expert. I'm the guy who learned this lesson the expensive way, the stupid way, the way that cost me actual money and actual years of my life I'll never get back. This is the story of how I finally accepted that I'm too dumb, too broke, and too tired to beat the market. And why that's actually the smartest financial decision I've ever made. See, in America right now, in January 2026, we got this weird thing happening. Everybody's either a day trader on TikTok claiming they made 50 grand in a week, or they're completely broke and convinced the whole stock market is a scam designed to rob regular people. There's no middle ground anymore. You're either YOLOing your rent money into meme stocks or you're keeping everything under your mattress because you think Wall Street is out to get you. And I get it, I really do. When I look at my paycheck and see what's left after rent, after the electric bill that somehow doubled since last year, after groceries that cost more than my first car payment, after student loans that will apparently follow me into the grave, after my truck insurance that went up for no reason, after my phone bill, after Netflix and the other streaming services I forget I'm paying for until the charge hits, the idea of investing feels like a sick joke. Investing? Man, I'm trying to figure out if I can afford the name brand cereal this week or if it's store brand Frosted Flakes again. Investing is for people with money left over. I got money left over for about 15 minutes a month before something breaks. But here's the thing that keeps me up at night, and I mean this literally because I'll be lying in bed doing the math on my phone calculator at 2 a.m. like a crazy person. I'm 37 years old. I got maybe 25, 30 years before I'm supposed to retire. And you know what my retirement plan is right now? Hope. That's it. Hope that Social Security doesn't implode. Hope that I don't get sick. Hope that inflation doesn't eat whatever pathetic amount I've managed to save. Hope is not a strategy, but it's the only strategy most of us got because the alternative requires actually dealing with money. And dealing with money is terrifying when you don't have enough of it. I was reading the other day that the average American my age has about $27,000 saved for retirement. $27,000. You know how long $27,000 lasts in retirement? About 3 years if you're lucky and don't eat much. So we got this whole generation of people who worked their entire lives, paid their taxes, played by the rules, and their retirement plan is basically work until I die or hope the kids have a spare room. That's the reality. That's what we're dealing with. And the financial system looks at us and goes, well, why didn't you invest more? Brother, I'm investing in making it to next month. But then I started thinking, and this is where my brain does this annoying thing where it won't shut up. Because I've proven I can screw up the complicated stuff. I've proven I can't pick stocks. I've proven I panic sell at exactly the wrong time. I've proven I fall for hype. So what if the trick isn't to get smarter, but to find something so stupid proof that my natural tendency to screw things up doesn't matter? That's the S&P 500. And I fought this realization for years because it felt like giving up. It felt like admitting I'm not special, I'm not smart enough to beat the market. I'm just another regular guy who should accept his mediocre place in the financial food chain. My ego didn't like it. I wanted to be the guy who picked the next Amazon when it was $5 a share. I wanted to be the guy telling stories at the bar about how I saw it coming. But you know what? My ego doesn't pay my bills. My ego didn't make me money. My ego cost me money. So let's talk about what the S&P 500 actually is, but I'm going to explain it the way I understand it, which means no jargon, no fancy terms, just straight talk like we're sitting here at this bar and you ask me what I learned after wasting a bunch of time and money. The S&P 500 is basically a basket. Imagine you go to the grocery store and instead of picking individual apples, you just grab a big bag that has 500 apples in it. Except instead of apples, it's the 500 biggest companies in America. We're talking Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, Nvidia, Tesla, JP Morgan, Coca-Cola, McDonald's, all of them. Every company you've ever heard of and a bunch you haven't. When you buy the S&P 500, you're buying a tiny piece of all 500 at once. Now, why would you do this instead of just picking the good apples yourself? Because, and this is the part that took me years to accept, you don't know which apples are good. Neither do I. Neither does your cousin who works in finance and acts like he knows. We think we know. We read articles, we watch the news, we see patterns that aren't there, but we don't actually know. And the proof is in every brokerage statement of every amateur investor who thought they were smarter than they actually are. Here's what happened to me. In 2021, I bought this tech stock because everyone was talking about it. The company made some product I didn't understand, but the chart looked good and the Reddit comments said it was going to triple. I bought in at $42 a share. It went to $45 and I felt like a genius. I told people about it. Then it dropped to $38 and I thought, it's a dip, buy more. Then it dropped to $31 and I thought, this is manipulation, hold strong. Then it dropped to $23 and I sold because I couldn't take the stress anymore. You know what it's trading at now? $56. I lost money and then it went up 30% after I panic sold. This isn't unusual. This is what I do. This is what most people do. The S&P 500 removes me from the equation. It removes my panic. It removes my greed. It removes my ego. It removes my I think this company is going to be big guesses that are always wrong. Instead, it says, here's America's biggest companies. As a group, they've gone up an average of about 10% per year for the last 50 years. Sometimes they go up 30%. Sometimes they go down 20%. But over time, if you zoom out, the line goes up. Because companies, on average, figure out how to make more money over time, and when they make more money, their stock prices go up. And I hate how boring that is. I really do. There's no story there. There's no, I picked this stock at $3 and it went to 300 story. There's just, I bought a piece of the American economy and it slowly grew over decades. That doesn't make you sound smart at parties. That doesn't make you feel like a financial wizard. But you know what it does? It actually makes you money without requiring you to be smart, which, for most of us, is the entire point. Let me break down why this matters right now in 2026 when everything feels expensive and broken. Inflation is still eating us alive. Yeah, it's not as bad as 2022 when everything doubled overnight, but it's still there, still quietly stealing from us. That cheap beer I'm drinking cost me $1.50 more per six-pack than it did 2 years ago. My rent went up again. My car insurance went up. Everything went up except my paycheck. That's inflation. And inflation is a tax on cash. If you keep your money in a savings account right now, you're losing money. The bank might give you 4% interest if you're lucky, but inflation is still running around 3 to 4% depending on who you believe. Which means you're breaking even at best, losing at worst. Your money is rotting. And keeping it under your mattress is even worse because that's 0% interest, while inflation eats it alive. So doing nothing isn't safe. Doing nothing is actually the riskiest move because you're guaranteed to lose purchasing power. This is the part that made me finally get my head out of my rear end. I was so scared of losing money in the stock market that I was keeping everything in savings, thinking I was being responsible. But I was losing money anyway. Just slower, just quietly, just in a way that didn't feel like losing because the number in my bank account stayed the same even though that number bought less and less every year. I was taking the risk of inflation while getting none of the potential upside of investing. That's the worst of both worlds. The S&P 500 historically beats inflation by a lot, not every year. Some years it gets crushed. 2022 was brutal, down like 20%. But over 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, it averages around 10% per year, which is 6 to 7% above inflation. That gap is what builds wealth. Not get-rich-quick wealth, not retire-at-30 wealth, but actual real, maybe I won't be eating cat food when I'm 70 wealth. Let me give you the math that changed my mind, and I promise this is the only math I'm doing because math makes my brain hurt. If you invest $500 a month into the S&P 500 starting at age 37, which is me, right now, and you do that for 28 years until you're 65 and it averages that historical 10% return, you'll have around $1.1 million. $1 million from $500 a month. Yeah, that's a lot of money per month if you're broke, and we'll talk about that. But the point is the system works if you can feed it. Now, you might be thinking, Bill, I don't have $500 a month to invest. I got $50 a month if I'm lucky. Cool. $50 a month for 28 years at 10% is still $110,000. That's not retirement, but it's a hell of a lot better than zero, which is what you'll have if you do nothing. And here's the thing about starting with small amounts. It builds the habit. It builds the discipline. It proves to yourself that you can do this. And then maybe next year, you get a raise, or you cut one subscription, or you stop buying lunch out every day. And suddenly you can do 75 a month, then 100. It's not about perfection, it's about starting and not stopping. But let's talk about the real question, the one I had, the one that kept me from doing this for years. What if I buy in and it crashes tomorrow? What if 2026 is the year everything falls apart? What if the market drops 30% right after I invest? Because that's happened before, it'll happen again. The market crashes every few years like clockwork. 2000, 2008, 2020, 2022, it keeps happening. And every time it happens, people panic and sell, which is exactly the wrong move, but it feels like the right move because watching your money disappear is psychological torture. Here's what I learned, and this is going to sound insane, but stick with me. Crashes don't matter if you don't sell. They only matter if you need the money right now. If you're investing for retirement and retirement is 20 years away. A crash today is actually good for you because it means you're buying shares on sale. It's like if you went to the grocery store and everything was 50% off. You wouldn't be upset about that. You'd load up your cart. But when stocks go on sale, people freak out and stop buying. It's backwards. Let me tell you about my dad. My dad worked construction his whole life, never made a ton of money. But he had this retirement account through his union and he just let it sit there, never looked at it, never touched it, just kept contributing a little bit every paycheck for 35 years. In 2008, when the market crashed and everyone was losing their minds, he didn't even know it happened because he didn't check the account. He just kept contributing. You know what happened? His account recovered, and then some because he was buying shares during the crash when they were cheap. He retired in 2019 with enough money to actually retire, not rich, but comfortable. And he did it by accident, by being too busy working to panic. That's the secret. The secret is to be too lazy or too busy to screw it up. The secret is to automate it so you don't have to think about it. Set it up so money comes out of your paycheck automatically, goes into an S&P 500 index fund automatically, and then forget about it. Don't check it every day. Don't watch the news. Don't panic when it drops. Just let it sit there doing its thing while you go live your life. And I know what you're thinking because I thought it too. This sounds too easy. If it's this easy, why isn't everyone doing it? There must be a catch. The catch is that it's boring. It's slow. It doesn't give you the dopamine hit of seeing a stock double in a week. It doesn't give you a story to tell. It doesn't make you feel smart. And in a culture that's obsessed with get-rich-quick schemes and overnight millionaires and crypto bros and day trading and hustle culture, slow and boring feels like losing. We've been conditioned to think that if we're not actively doing something, grinding, optimizing, hustling, then we're falling behind. But here's the truth that took me way too long to accept. The people who get rich slowly are the ones who actually stay rich. The people who get rich quick are usually the ones who go broke quick because they never learned discipline, they never learned patience, they just learned how to gamble and got lucky once. Wealth isn't built in a day. It's built in decades, and the S&P 500 is the ultimate decade strategy. Now let's talk about the practical stuff because theory is useless if you don't know how to actually do this. Step 1. Open a brokerage account. I use Fidelity because it's simple and they don't charge fees for buying index funds, but you could use Vanguard, Charles Schwab, whatever. They're all pretty similar. It takes like 15 minutes to set up. You need your social security number, your bank account info, and that's basically it. Don't overthink this part. Just pick one and open the account. Step 2. Buy an S&P 500 index fund. The most common ones are VOO from Vanguard, SPY from State Street, or IVV from BlackRock. They all do the same thing. They all track the S&P 500. The fees are basically nothing, like 0.03% per year, which is almost free. When you're in your brokerage account, you just search for the ticker symbol, in my case VOO, and you buy it like you're buying anything online. You can buy full shares or partial shares. If VOO is trading at $500 and you only have $100, you can buy 0.2 shares. It's that simple. Step 3. Set up automatic investments. This is the most important step because this is what removes you from the equation. Most brokerage accounts let you set up automatic transfers from your bank account on a schedule. I have mine set to pull $200 out of my checking account every 2 weeks on payday and automatically buy more VOO. I never see the money. It's gone before I can spend it on something dumb. And because it happens automatically, I don't have to remember to do it. I don't have to fight the urge to skip a month. It just happens whether I feel like it or not. And I'm not going to lie to you, that first few months of seeing $200 disappear from my paycheck every 2 weeks was painful. It felt like I was making less money. It felt like I couldn't afford it. I kept thinking about all the things I could buy with that $400 a month. But then I realized I was already spending that $400 on things I didn't need and didn't remember a month later. I was spending it on eating out, on impulse purchases, on stuff that didn't matter. At least this way, the money was going somewhere that would actually help future me, instead of just disappearing into the void of daily expenses I can't even track. The other thing I did, and this helped a lot with the psychology, was I stopped checking my account balance every day. I used to open the app constantly, watching it go up and down, feeling good when it was green, feeling sick when it was red, letting my entire mood be controlled by numbers on a screen. That's no way to live. Now I check it once a month just to make sure the automatic transfers are happening, and that's it. I don't watch the daily movements. I don't read the panic headlines about how the market's going to crash. I just let it do its thing. Because here's what I realized. The market goes up and down every single day for reasons that don't matter. The CEO of some company said something dumb in an interview, so the stock drops 3%. Then next week they announce good earnings and it goes up 5%. None of that matters. What matters is the long-term trend, and the long-term trend is up. Always has been. Every single time the market has crashed in American history, it has recovered and gone higher. Every single time. The people who lost money were the ones who sold during the crash. The people who made money were the ones who held through it or kept buying. Now, I gotta address the elephant in the room. Some of you are sitting there thinking, Bill, this is great for you, but I literally don't have any money to invest. I'm living paycheck to paycheck. I got debt. I got bills. I can't just magically find $500 or even $50 a month. And you're right. I get it. I've been there. Hell, I'm still kind of there some months when unexpected expenses hit. So here's what I did and what you might have to do. I had to get brutal about cutting expenses. And I don't mean the fun stuff. I mean the invisible stuff. The subscriptions I forgot about, the convenient spending, the eating out because I was too tired to cook. I went through my bank statements for 3 months and highlighted every single charge that wasn't absolutely necessary for survival. And you know what I found? I was spending like $300 a month on stuff I didn't need and didn't even enjoy. Streaming services I wasn't watching. That gym membership I used twice. Coffee shop runs that added up. Impulse purchases on Amazon. It was death by 1,000 small cuts. I cut all of it. Not forever, but for now. And I took that money and redirected it into investing. Was it fun? No. Did I feel like I was depriving myself? Yeah, sometimes. But then I thought about 70-year-old me working at Walmart because I didn't save anything, and that image scared me more than giving up my daily energy drink. The other thing I had to do was tackle my debt. I had about $8,000 on a credit card at 22% interest. That's insane. That interest was eating me alive. I was paying like $150 a month just in interest, not even touching the principal. So I had to make a choice. Invest or pay off debt. And the math said pay off debt first because there's no investment on earth that consistently returns 22% per year. Paying off that debt was like getting a guaranteed 22% return. So I paused my investing, went into attack mode on the debt, cut every possible expense, worked some overtime, and killed that credit card in like 10 months. It sucked. But once it was gone, I suddenly had that $150 a month in interest payments plus the minimum payment freed up to invest. That's $250 a month right there. I'm not saying this to shame anyone or to make it sound easy. It's not easy. It's hard. It requires sacrifice. It requires discipline. It requires saying no to things you want now for things you need later. But the alternative is scarier to me. The alternative is being 65 years old with nothing, hoping Social Security exists, hoping my body holds up enough to keep working, hoping I don't get sick because I can't afford health care. That's not a hope I want to live on. And here's the thing about the S&P 500 that makes it perfect for people like me who are broke and tired. You don't need to be rich to start. You don't need $10,000 sitting around. You can literally start with $25. Yeah, it's not going to make you rich overnight, but it's a start. It's proof that you're taking control. And psychologically, that matters. Every time you make an investment, even if it's small, you're reinforcing the identity of someone who invests, someone who plans for the future, someone who's building something. That identity shift is powerful. Let me tell you about my buddy Carlos. Carlos drives a forklift at a warehouse, makes like $40,000 a year, got 2 kids. He's the definition of regular working guy. 3 years ago, he started investing $50 a month into VOO. That's it, just $50. Skipped a few months when money was tight, but mostly stuck with it. You know how much he has now? About $2,300. That's not life-changing money, but it's money he didn't have before. And more importantly, he proved to himself he could do it. Now he's up to $75 a month. Give him another 20 years and he'll have a real nest egg. He's building wealth the slow, boring way, and he's going to be fine because he started and didn't stop. Now let's talk about the psychological warfare that's going to happen when you start doing this, because the market is designed to make you feel terrible and second-guess everything. You're going to invest your first $100 and the next day the market's going to drop and you're going to see your balance go to 95 and you're going to think, see, this is a scam. I should have kept my money in cash. Don't. That's just normal market movement. It'll go back up. Then it'll drop again. Then it'll go up more. It's a roller coaster. You gotta stay in the car. You're also going to hear about people making crazy money on other investments. Your cousin's going to tell you about some crypto that went up 300%. Your coworker's going to brag about a stock pick that doubled. You're going to feel like you're missing out, like you're being boring and scared while everyone else is getting rich. This is FOMO, fear of missing out, and it's deadly. It's what made me lose money in the first place. I kept chasing the hot thing instead of sticking with the plan. Here's what I try to remember. For every person who made money on a risky bet, there's 10 people who lost money and don't talk about it. You only hear the success stories. You don't hear about the guy who put his life savings into some altcoin that went to zero. You don't hear about the people who bought GameStop at $350 and still haven't recovered. Survivorship bias. We see the winners and think that's normal, but most people who try to get rich quick end up broke quick. The S&P 500 is boring, but boring wins. Boring is reliable. Boring doesn't blow up your life. Boring lets you sleep at night. And after years of stress and anxiety and financial chaos, boring sounds pretty damn good to me. Let me hit you with one more thing that changed my perspective on all this. I used to think investing was for rich people, for people who had money to play with, for people who could afford to lose. But that's backwards. Investing is actually more important for broke people like me because we don't have family money to fall back on. We don't have a trust fund. We don't have parents who can bail us out if things go sideways. The only wealth we're ever going to have is wealth we build ourselves, slowly, methodically, by taking a little bit from every paycheck and putting it somewhere that grows. Rich people can afford to keep all their money in cash because they already have millions. They're fine. But we can't afford that. We need our money to work for us because we're already working as hard as we can and it's still not enough. The S&P 500 is the closest thing to a cheat code for regular people. It's not sexy, it's not exciting, but it works. And after wasting years chasing exciting investments that didn't work, I'll take boring investments that do work any day of the week. So here's my challenge to you, and I'm doing this with you because I'm still figuring this out myself. Start. Don't wait until you have more money. Don't wait until you understand it better. Don't wait until the market dips or whatever excuse you're using. Just open an account, put in whatever amount you can afford to lose, even if it's $25, and buy some VOO or SPY or whatever S&P 500 fund you want. Then set up an automatic investment for whatever amount you can actually sustain, even if it's tiny. Then forget about it for a year. That's it. That's the strategy. Open, buy, automate, ignore. If you can do those 4 things, you're ahead of 90% of people who never start because they're overthinking it or waiting for the perfect moment that never comes. The perfect moment is now, not because now is special, but because the longer you wait, the less time compound interest has to work its magic. And look, I'm not saying this is going to solve all your problems. It's not. You're still going to be broke sometimes. You're still going to have unexpected expenses. You're still going to stress about money, but at least you'll have something growing in the background, slowly, quietly, building toward a future where maybe, just maybe, you won't have to work until you die. That's the dream, right? Not to be rich. Just to not be terrified of being old and poor. The S&P 500 is the laziest way to get rich, and by rich I mean comfortable enough to retire someday without eating cat food. It requires no skill, no special knowledge, no market timing, no stock picking, no nothing. It just requires starting and not stopping. That's it. The bar is so low that even I can do it, and I've proven I can screw up pretty much every other investment strategy. So yeah, that's what I learned after wasting years and money trying to be smart. The secret to investing isn't being smart. It's being consistent and being boring and not screwing it up by trying to be clever. Buy the S&P 500. Let it sit. Add to it when you can. Don't touch it when it drops. Repeat for decades. That's the whole thing. That's the secret that the finance industry doesn't want you to know, because if everyone did this simple thing, we wouldn't need financial advisors or active fund managers or any of that stuff. But hey, what do I know? I'm just a guy drinking cheap beer and trying not to be broke when I'm 70. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's a better way. But this is what I'm doing. And if you're like me, tired and broke and skeptical but still hoping there's a way out of this financial mess we're all in, maybe give it a shot. Worst case scenario, you're in the same boat you're already in. Best case scenario, you actually build something that matters. Here's to being too lazy to fail. Cheers.